Hey guys, welcome back to Gardens from the Ground Up, the series where I show you how to create a garden from the ground up. Today's episode is all about preparing the space. So it is the very last day of March here. Behind me, I have my garden space and I'm going to work on getting these tarps laid out. So I do a mixture of in-ground and above-ground gardening. So I will plant a lot of my plants in the ground, but I also, back here, have 4 small raised beds. They're 4 foot by 4 foot. They're only about 6 inches tall. I have a video showing how I made these beds. I'll put that up above and down below so you can see that. This is a super easy way to build raised beds and is really not too expensive. I didn't have to have a truck. I drive a small SUV and I was able to get everything I needed in the back of my small SUV and do these beds by myself. So if you were looking to go raised bed route, that's a good way to go. If you're trying to just figure out and maybe dip your toes into gardening for the first time. If you are just looking to establish a new in-ground gardening space, there's so many different ways to do it. I have this space back here. It is about 1,600 square feet total, but I do have my greenhouse in here and I have these 4 raised beds. So those take up quite a bit of room in the back. That also counts the landscaping area I have in the very back of my yard up against the fence. So that area will not necessarily be planted with garden plants. Eventually I would like to replace that with some like berry bushes and things like that, but for now there's a couple oak leaf hydrangeas back there and a knockout rose bush, some sedums, things like that, and those are all going to stay there. So the rest of this area is just grass. It's turf, it's sod, it's wild violets, it's creeping Charlie, it's just a wide variety of things. Our house was built in the early 1970s, so it is about 50 years old at this point, and the yard has been like this the entire time the house has been here. Nothing has ever really been done back here until now when I'm trying to establish a gardening space. So I had a few options of ways for me to establish this space. One of them was actually the original one I was considering, was renting a sod cutter and cutting all of this grass and weeds out. That is an additional cost. For me, it was going to be around $150 for a 1-day rental of a sod cutter. I had accepted that, but locally where I am, I could not find one. The 2 rental places that we have here where I live that offer like equipment rentals did not have sod cutters. One of them did, but it was at a different location that's about an hour and a half north of here, and for them to move it down here for me was going to be an additional charge of like 50 bucks. So I did find one available at a Home Depot through rentals, but it was about 45 minutes away. I'd have to borrow a truck, go get the sod cutter, bring it back, get it all cut in 1 day, and have it back by 6 p.m. And the more I thought about it, the more I decided that I just didn't think that was gonna work. I was worried we'd get it here and we wouldn't be able to do what we needed to do in 1 day, and then I'd have to run it again, or something would happen and we wouldn't be able to get it back on time and they'd charge us an extra fee. And so I just decided that we were not going to do it like that. A couple days ago, my brother-in-law actually came over with his 0-turn riding lawnmower and pretty much scalped this area for me, mowed it down as close to the ground as he could get it. The only problem is our yard is not even, like, at all. So there's a lot of grass still left. There are quite a few areas that have been scalped and it looks wonderful, but there's a lot of grass and violets still left. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna get my weed eater out and I'm going to weed eat this area a little bit, just in the spots where it's a little bit lower, just to kind of cut that grass down as far as I can. After that, I have this pile of tarps here, and I'm going to cover the garden with these tarps, weigh them down with just whatever. I have my 4 cattle panels sitting over here in the grass that I'm gonna use to weigh them down. And I'm gonna let the tarps do the work. I'm gonna let the tarps just suffocate the grass. They will not get any light, they won't get any moisture, and that will help kill this stuff out here. Now, it is the end of March. I will not be sowing anything in the ground until the very earliest, the end of April. My average last frost date here, I'm in South Central Indiana. My average last frost date is April 18th. But I just don't feel like that's true. Because we have had frosts the last 2 years at the beginning of May. So my biggest rule of thumb for planting here where I am on the line between zone 5B and 6A in South Central Indiana. My biggest rule of thumb is do not plant anything before Mother's Day weekend. Even the weekend after, if you can wait. This year, Mother's Day is a little bit earlier than it was the last couple years. So I may even wait until that next weekend. I don't know. So these tarps will have plenty of time to kill this tiny little grass that is out here, and will allow me to come back, just gently break up that soil with a pitchfork and plant my plants. I am going to be doing a cover crop this year as a living mulch instead of using wood chip mulch like I've done in the past. Mulching is something you need to start thinking about now. I know you have nothing out in your garden yet, but you need to start thinking about how am I going to mulch these plants, because they will need to be mulched. There's a bunch of different ways you can mulch. I'm going to be using clover as a living mulch. I also have shredded paper that I can use. I actually have some in this bed right here on my potatoes. It's doing a great job. You can mulch your leaves with a lawnmower and use those, which I've also done in a couple of these raised beds. That works really well. If you have a smaller space, use wood chips. I used dyed brown wood chips in my garden at our old house for years. Never had any issues whatsoever. It looks beautiful, but for this size of a space, I just don't have the budget, nor do I want to spend the money on wood chips. So I'm going to be using anything that I can get for free or very low cost. And for me, that is shredded paper, mulched leaves, and that clover cover crop. So think about your space, think about how big your space is, and really think about what you are going to need to buy in bulk or bagged or whatever to get that space ready. This is a time also to be thinking about building your raised beds. If you are going to do raised beds, get those built and get them filled. You can fill your beds with sticks, logs, dried leaves, branches off of things as you're pruning. Really anything that will break down and create more soil over time. Right now is a great time to buy bagged soil if you are looking to buy bagged soil, because usually it's on sale. I filled these last 3 beds a couple weeks ago, and I got all my soil at Rural King. It was very cheap. It was really nice quality soil too, which I was happy with, and it worked really well in these beds. So keep all those things in mind when you are thinking about preparing your space. All of them are very important, and all of them make a huge difference when it comes to getting your garden ready to plant. I'm gonna go grab a battery for the weed eater, because we have a battery powered weed eater and lawnmower, and get to weed eating. It's like 40 degrees out today. Yesterday it was 75, but it was gusting up to 40 miles an hour, so I decided not to weed eat yesterday. So now I'm just cold, but I am ready to go. So yeah, I guess let's get this started. All right, I weeded it a little bit. I feel like I did more than it, like you can't tell that I did anything from here, but I did. I'm just trying to scalp the yard, which is like the opposite of what you would normally want to do in your yard. So the next step is to put these tarps down. All right, I need more tarps. Okay, so I have my tarps down. It has been a couple days since I shot the last part of the video. I had to go get more tarps. But the tarps are down. This should kill off most of the grass and weeds that are underneath here, and then I will be ready to just gently break up that soil and get my cover crop planted and get the ground ready to plant my plants. So this is a great way to establish a space if you are working in ground. It is bright. If you're working with something like raised beds, you don't necessarily need to do this. Prepare your space the way you want it, and you can fill your beds with cardboard like I showed in the video where I made these. There are other options too. I have over here a few of these style raised beds. Now these are from a brand called Keeter. They are called Easy Garden or something. These are like 2 foot by 4 foot. They're a little under that. That's the outside dimensions, but these beds are great. I do have a video about these as well that I'll put in the corner and down below. The only problem I have with these beds now is squirrels. So you can see there's a hole right there. There's holes just all over in these. So I tried to combat that with some plastic forks, and apparently it did not work because they're just digging around them. So I did plant some more lettuce seeds in here, and they are starting to come up, but these are nice and deep. They're about 18 inches deep. They are wonderful and I love them. They're also up off the ground, which is a nice feature. They have this little thing here where you can do bottom watering, and if this sticks up too high, you know there's too much water, and you can actually come down here, open this up, and let some of the water out, like if it rains too much in it. So I have 3 of these. I really like them a lot. I will say that I got these last year, and I have seen them at Sam's Club and Menards so far this year, and they have gone up in price just like everything else. These are about $120 a piece. When I got them, I think they were less than 100. They were like 90, I think. But that is an option if you just want a couple really nice looking boxes to put on your deck. Those are very attractive looking. They have different styles as well. Mine look more like a fake wicker, but they do have some that have just like the flat sides that are also really nice looking. So if you're in like a rental, or you just don't have a lot of space, maybe you have a patio, those would work wonderfully. And those would take no preparation. You just fill them up and plant. In that video where I talked about those more, I did show you what I filled them with. I think I used a mixture of garden soil, potting soil, and compost. I think that's what I did, but I don't remember. So I will refer to my past self to teach you about how to fill those up. So I hope this was helpful. I hope it was not overwhelming. If you have questions about preparing your space, please let me know. I am here to help. This is not the first time I've created a garden from scratch, so especially in like a suburban backyard. I have done this before, and I've done it in a couple different ways. So if you have questions, please let me know. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.